Hello, hi, happy new year, happy 2026. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to the first video of 2026. What better way to start off 2026 than to share my top 10 reads of 2025? In 2025, I have read 30 books and DNF'd or soft DNF'd 2 books. So without further ado, let's jump into my top 10 reads of 2025. Coming in at number 10, we have Good Spirits by B.K. Borison. I read this during my Bookmas video, and this really gave me all the festive holiday feels and really put me into the holiday spirits. We follow our female main character, Harriet, as she is being haunted by the ghost of Christmas past. She is this nice, sweet girl, and she doesn't know why she's being haunted by the ghost of Christmas past. And the ghost of Christmas past is our second main protagonist, Nolan. And as we go into Harriet's past, the ghost of Christmas past is also wondering, why is she being haunted? She seems like this nice, sweet girl. She doesn't seem like any of his past clients. And that's where we see that there might be a link between the ghost of Christmas past and our female main character, Harriet. My favorite part of this book is when our main male protagonist, the ghost of Christmas past, Nolan, goes to his magical realm and he needs to visit his manager or needs to talk to someone in his department. And this setting is in a corporate setting, so it's easy to imagine. And we get to see all these different magical beings in there as well. There are instances of the poltergeist, we see the Grim Reaper. I don't really remember all the other characters, but there are sprinkles of different characters in here. And although we don't really dive into their story, it's just nice to see how magical this world is. We don't really dive into his world that much, but whenever I do, I kind of relish in it. So I also enjoy the quote unquote banter between our main protagonists and just their way of communicating, I guess. So I'm not sure if it's really considered banter, but I guess how they kind of quip at each other. So I really enjoyed that as well. I gave this book a 4.25 stars. It is a very solid read for a holiday romance. However, I found that the ending, I don't know if it's because I didn't really understand it or maybe I missed it or something like that, but I wasn't really too satisfied with the ending or leading up to the ending. For me, I felt like the ending was a bit weak for me, and I don't know if I really fully understood the ending. I think I understood it, but at the same time, I felt like didn't really make much sense, maybe? I'm not sure. So the main reason why I picked up this book is to get into the holiday spirit, and this did exactly that. I rated this a 4.25 stars. Still a very good book. Coming in at number 9, we have Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. We follow our main protagonist, Tova, and she is, I think she's somewhere in her 60s or 70s. I can't really see it in the back of the book, but she's in the elderly age. We follow her working at an aquarium and she befriends the octopus in the aquarium. Every time I think about this book, I get this feeling of a big warm hug from this book, from the story, from the friendship between our female main character and our main animal character, I guess. There are different POVs, and we actually also get the POV of the octopus Marcellus. You may ask, what's so special about reading about a friendship between an octopus and our female main character? Well, there is a bit of mystery in this story. After Tova's husband passes away, she wants to keep herself busy, so she works at this aquarium. And that's how she always coped with the loss or any grief that she has. She's been doing this since the mysterious disappearance of her 18-year-old son way back when. Currently, I gave this a 4 stars, but now that I think about it, I feel like I want to give this a higher rating, maybe a 4.5 stars, because every time I think about this book, I think about the friendship between our octopus and our female main character, and it is such a great read. A great read is just an understatement, I would say. It's such a touching read. There is that hint of mystery in this story, but I feel like it wasn't the driving force for me to give it the rating that it has. It does push the story forward, but just reading about the friendship between our female main character Tova and our octopus Marcellus was such a touching, heartwarming read that this deserves maybe even a higher rating. Maybe I should give it a 4.5 stars. For now, I'll just keep it as 4, but the more I think about it, the more I want to push it to a 4.5 stars. From the 2 people that did recommend it to me, I see what you see. That is Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt, coming in at number 9. Coming in at number 8 might be a surprise and possibly a shocking place to put this book, but coming in at number 8 is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This is Haymitch's story in the Hunger Games series, and it is the second prequel to the series. So I've already watched the movies in the past, but this year I decided to reread the Hunger Games and then read the whole series. So Catching Fire, Mockingjay, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, so that I can be prepared for Sunrise on the Reaping. I was looking forward to this book because Haymitch was one of my favorite characters, and I was always intrigued and curious about his story. So I imagined him to be this kind of rebellious, cunning, intelligent character. I didn't really feel like he was that rebellious, cunning type of character that I was imagining him to be. I felt like as I was reading this, there was some favoritism by the other contenders, the other participants in the Hunger Games. I was kind of disappointed with his character, but I mean, I gave this a 4.5 stars, so I still really enjoy this book, but I had higher expectations on Sunrise on the Reaping. So this follows the formula of the Hunger Games, where we go through the reaping, go through the Hunger Games. Actually, we go through the training of the Hunger Games itself, and then what happens after the Hunger Games. We already see sprinkles of Haymitch's story within the Hunger Games trilogy. I felt like there was no surprising element that came out of this book. I kind of expected how the games was going to go, and I'm not even sure if there was supposed to be a surprise element. Actually, when we started this book, I was shocked that he had a lover, but that didn't really bother me too much. But I know he's going to be losing a lot of people that he loves in here, and I can see why he became the person that he is in the trilogy. I guess I was expecting more for his character, being that rebellious, intelligent character, but he went through so much in this. I felt that Suzanne Collins did a wonderful job tying in the whole series together using this book without being over repetitive. Yes, I did say I was kind of disappointed with how his character is in this book, but overall, I still really enjoyed this book. However, I would wish that there were some more surprising elements or something that can push me into binging this book, because I found myself, I think I took a whole month or maybe a little bit more to finish this book. It wasn't something that captured my attention to binge this book. So that's why it's kind of staying at number 8. However, the epilogue in this book was so good. I was satisfied with how the epilogue turned out. So that is Sunrise on the Reaping, coming in at number 8. Coming in at number 7 is my first 5-star read of 2025 on this list, and that is A Prayer for the Crownshy by Becky Chambers. This is the second and last installment of the duology The Monk and Robot, and the first book being A Psalm for the Wild-Built. So this continues our journey between Moscap and sibling Dex as they continue to find the meaning of humanity. This was such a cozy and heartwarming read. I love reading about the friendship between Moscap and sibling Dex. My favorite character was the robot Moscap, and I just love how Moscap embarks on finding out the meaning of humanity, humans, of how humans work. And it's just a great reminder to slow down if your life is getting really busy, and to stop and smell the roses. I loved this book, and I'm thinking of purchasing the duology maybe sometime in 2026 because I find that this is a book that I would like to keep in my collection, and I would love to keep books that I'm always thinking about. So that is A Prayer for the Crown Shy coming in at number 7. Although it is number 7, it was hard. Everything else is just 5 stars. Although it comes in at number 7, I absolutely love this book as well. So that is A Prayer for the Crown Shy coming in at number 7. Coming in at number 6, we have Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins. So just a quick disclaimer, I am not including The Hunger Games, the first book, in this video because that one was a reread, but everything else counts because it is not a reread. It is my first time reading the Hunger Games series. So I've only read The Hunger Games, and so that one I'm not including, but that one also deserves a 5 stars because I absolutely loved The Hunger Games. And that was actually the one that made me cry out of all the books in the series. Mockingjay comes in at number 6, and this is the 3rd book in the Hunger Games original trilogy. So the reason why I put this above Sunrise on the Reaping is because this one does not follow the formula of how the Hunger Games book is structured. I felt like it was more complex. There's more things to unfold. There's more things that we are uncertain of. And because of that, I rank this a bit higher. I find that this one is one of the darker reads out of the trilogy. It is not the darkest because I find that The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was the darkest. And then probably maybe Sunrise on the Reaping is the second. But Mockingjay is pretty high up there in terms of it being dark. I think this was a solid ending to the original trilogy. That is Mockingjay coming in at number 6. We are on our top 5 reads now, and let's start with number 5 on the list. Number 5 goes to Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I put this a smidge higher than Mockingjay only because this caught me off guard. I went in knowing that this had mixed reviews, and so I kind of went in with mixed thoughts and kind of mixed expectations, or little to no expectations. I just wanted to go in so that I can finish reading this trilogy and then go on to Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. So this caught me off guard. I really enjoyed this book. I love the magical elements of this book. I love the sister relationship in here as well. I kind of love reading about sisters, and so I like how that has that in here. So we follow 2 sisters, Scarlett and Donatella, and we know her as Tella in the story, as they get an invitation to attend Caraval, which is a magical performance that is held once a year, and the audience gets to participate in these games. This unknown sailor comes to whisk them away to the island where Caraval is held that year. Upon arrival, one of the sisters, Tella, gets kidnapped by the mastermind of Caraval, who is Master Legend. However, be warned, when you are participating in the games of Caraval, not everything you see is real. So you have to be cautious not to get swept too far away from reality, because many of these are just illusions. So Scarlett has to find Tella and win the game before Tella disappears forever. I love how magical this world was. I was part of the participants in the games, and I interchanged between reading the physical copy and listening it through an audiobook, and I was immersed when listening through audio. It really helped bring me into that magical world. I think I would recommend interchanging between the physical copy and the audiobook. I do recommend the audiobook because that really sets that magical tone in this book, but even reading it is also good as well. I really like how there is just the standard narration, but it also has little cards. It has little slips of paper, or even has that little invitation kind of cardstocky look to it. So I do like how this is sprinkled through the book as well. So it kind of brings you into that magical world. So visually speaking, it makes you feel like you're part of the games. There is some romance in this story. And honestly, I didn't really care for the romance, but I didn't let it alter my rating on this book because the magical elements in this book really drove it to be a 5 stars for me. That is Caraval coming in at number 5. Coming in at number 4 is also an unexpected favorite, and I've talked about this quite a lot on this channel. But coming in at number 4 is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. Now, we follow our female main character, Clementine, and after the loss of her aunt, whom she was very close with, her aunt leaves her apartment to Clementine. And this is no ordinary apartment. This is a magical apartment. Clementine doesn't really see the magical element to this apartment, but just being with her aunt is what makes it magical for her. We dive into Clementine's life. So her work life, where she's trying to climb the ladder, keeping herself busy, although she doesn't really want to work in this field. And then we also follow how she is going through her grief of losing her aunt and also her non-existent love life. Now in comes our second main protagonist, Iwan, and he literally appears in her apartment one day when she comes home from, I believe, work or just an outing. When she comes back to the apartment, she sees a random man standing in her apartment as if he owns the apartment. Now, the odd thing here is that he is from 7 years in the past. So they are coexisting in the same place, but 7 years apart. I've seen circling around online that this is a very novel book and just an original story. And so with that in mind, when I was reading the synopsis, I felt like it was not an original story or not a novel story because this kind of reminded me of the 2 movies Il Mare and also The Lake House, which I also mentioned in a previous video. And so with that in mind, I didn't really think it was too original. So that kind of notched it down a bit. Did not have any expectations going in, but I wanted to pick it up to see what the hype is about. The 7-year gap between our 2 main protagonists is the extent to the similarities between the 2 media. After that, I was hooked to the book. I really enjoyed the magical realism of the 7-year gap between our 2 main protagonists. I like seeing Clementine go through her life. However, I wasn't a big fan of the romance. I thought it was just there. There was one event that caught me off guard and almost got me teary-eyed. That one was kind of constantly on my mind at this one event because I did not expect it to be in the story. That event that happened is what drove it to be a 5-star read because it really made me feel something in the book. That is The 7-Year Slip coming in at number 4 for being an unexpected favorite. So now we are on our top 3 books of 2025. Coming in at 3rd place is 6 Scorched Roses by Carissa Broadbent. This is a novella, and I am very shocked that it became one of my top 3 books of 2025. This is a novella to the Crowns of Nyaxia series. I believe currently there are 5 books released, maybe a 6th book is coming out, and I have only read the 1st book and this novella. I really did enjoy the 1st book, but I have heard mixed reviews of this series, and that is what is kind of deterring me from continuing with the series. Also, the series is so long. I don't know if I want to continue it. Maybe I'll read the 2nd book and see if I want to continue the series. So this series goes by 2. So the 1st and 2nd book follows the same main characters. And then in the 3rd and 4th book, we see a shift in our characters. We don't follow the same characters as in the 1st and 2nd books. And we follow completely different characters in the 3rd and 4th. And again, completely different characters in the 5th and possibly 6th book. They were side characters of the 1st and 2nd books. let's say, and now they became the main characters. That's what I think this series is about. So let's get back to Six Scorched Roses. This is probably the best novella I have ever read. It did not feel like a short story at all. It felt like I was reading a whole length story. There was no skipping of the scenes or jumping of the scenes or rushing into things. So I really enjoyed that. This is one of those books that I gave it a 5 stars, but I forgot what it's about. But my feeling is telling me that it is a 5 star. And I have that feeling of, wow, that was an amazing read. Do I remember what it's about? Not really, but that's okay. And since it is a novella, I could definitely pick it up anytime I want, and it's just less than 200 pages. So if I recall correctly, the yearning or just the tension between the two characters in this book was so good. I drove it to be a 5 stars. And the main thing that it is not jumping scenes or rushing into things, that is what I loved about this novella. That is Six Scorched Roses coming in at number 3. Coming in at number 2 is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. I absolutely loved this duology. This is the first book in the Shepherd King duology. In this world, there are 2 types of magic. The first and acceptable magic is those that wield magic through Providence cards. There are 12 different types, and you would tap the card 3 times to wield its magic and then tap it 3 times again to stop using the magic. However, magic comes with a cost. So if you are using these Providence cards for too long, you're going to feel the side effects to it, or the consequences towards using the magic for too long. The second and unacceptable way of wielding magic are those that come down with a fever and survive. They possess this magic without using Providence cards, and that is what they call black magic. In order to come down with this fever, there is this mist that is surrounding the kingdom of Blunder. If you go into this mist for too long, you come down with a fever, and if you survive that fever, then you automatically have magic. And there are some consequences with this form of magic as well. In comes our main protagonist, Elspeth, and she is one of those that have magic in the unacceptable way. She also has to hide the fact that she has this type of magic, and those that are helping her needs to hide that fact as well, because if they get caught hiding that she has this form of magic and herself gets caught having this type of magic, they get exiled, and in the end comes death. Now, Elspeth has this magic, and this magic, it seems that her magic is that there is this nightmare in her mind trying to either guide or torment her. We don't know until you read this book. In comes our main male protagonist, Raven, and not only is he the nephew to the king of our world, so he is also the captain of the Detriers, so the captain of the army of this kingdom. And also, he is hiding the fact that he is a highwayman. There's a lot to unpack here. These two go on a quest to cure the world of this mist so that they can lift this curse of this black magic that is surrounding the kingdom of Blunder. That is what we are following here. And this was such an amazing read. This one is more fantasy than romance. I feel like this is a great beginner duology for those that want to try fantasy, as this is a gothic fantasy romance. So you have that gothic element in here while having that romance, so that you're not really diving into heavy fantasy. And also the magic system is very easy to digest. So I think this is going to be a very great beginner book for those that want to try fantasy. I was very hooked with reading this book. I could not put it down. And every time I was not reading this, I was thinking about what is going to happen. The ending was a bit of a cliffhanger, but it wasn't such a huge cliffhanger for me to have to pick up the second book immediately. I just wanted to read the second book immediately because I wanted to continue staying in this world. So that is One Dark Window coming in at number 2. And the first place, the number 1 book, my favorite read of 2025, goes to Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. This is the second in a duology of the Shepherd King duology. This was amazing. The ending, phenomenal. There is more romance here, but I think that is what would help with bridging those that don't read fantasy into maybe dipping their toes into fantasy. I love the different POVs we get to read from our characters. I especially love our side characters' romance compared to our main character's romance. However, I still really enjoyed our main character's romance as well, but I preferred the side characters more. One of my favorite characters in here is a side character, which is Ione. She had so much character in her, even though one of the Providence cards is holding back her personality. Absolutely amazing. Although this dives into more of the romance of our characters, it didn't really overshadow the fantasy element that was the driving force of this story. So it didn't really lose that fantasy plot that I was expecting, at least in this duology. So Rachel Gillig did an amazing job balancing romance and fantasy in this duology. The ending was so good. You cannot ask for a better ending to this duology. So Rachel Gillig, you did a phenomenal job with this duology. And that concludes my top 10 reads of 2025. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.